welcome to the Intuitive Abundance podcast. So good to be here. It has been a while. I was just looking it up on the podcast, and it has been, I think, since December. Where have those months gone? So I'm super pumped to come to you today and have a conversation because so much has happened in the last little while. And I want to talk to you today about being too rich to manifest anymore. To get to a place in your reality where there's no need to manifest as such. There is simply a state of being that you are living from. So I'm super excited to jump into that. Personally, the last couple of months have been amazing. I actually took some time out in mid-January and I went over to Oklahoma and had the most amazing retreat. Big shout out to Christy Diamond. She's based in Oklahoma. If you ever get the opportunity to work with her, fabulous. It was the upgrade that I needed. Deep intuitive inner world work. In terms of me, as always, it is about who do I wish to become? So big shout out to Christy. Loved that experience. I spent quite a little bit of time kind of integrating in Hollywood of all places after that. And yeah, February has just flown by so quickly, and here we are almost to the end of March. So what has happened for me personally just recently too, folks, is I actually just paid off my home loan, which is a story that I'd love to share with you before we really talk more about being too rich to manifest anymore, because it really came with something interesting that I'd like to share with you because I want you to see if it's in your life and your reality. So I paid off my loan and I had about $179 left. And instead of waiting for the next repayment, so it's just done, I called the bank and said, okay, can we process this? And I was talking to the gentleman on the phone, and I've had this home loan for 13 years, every fortnight, religiously paying my home loan repayment. And he took the money from another account, paid it off. And I remember saying to him, isn't there supposed to be lights or music or some kind of celebration? Something to signify this milestone moment in your life. And he just laughed and said, congratulations. But it was really interesting because I thought it was going to be so exciting, so thrilling, and it actually felt kind of flat. And of course, being curious and working with consciousness, I jumped into that. I went, okay, what is going on here? Why am I not feeling really excited? And I had a coffee with a friend the next day and I was talking to her and it came out of my mouth and I just said, what I realized is having this payment gave me something to work towards. It kind of gave me purpose. It felt noble, it felt honorable to have this debt, to be working towards a worthy goal. And then the identity shift that comes from not having that anymore, being the person who is debt free. Now, I did not anticipate the identity shift that went along with this because it's a wonderful milestone moment, right? To get to a place where you're like, I own my house, not the bank, right? The ownership has transferred fully to myself. I own it completely. Thank you so much to the bank for lending me the money to be able to buy it and live in it, but it is now officially my own. And really, when I went into this further and I realized that I had attached worthiness to the purpose of the loan. And what happens when you don't have it anymore is there are parts of you that can feel a little lost because now that I don't have that anymore, who am I without it? And these are the kind of identity shifts that are actually really important, folks, in terms of seeing yourself as rich. Because what I really began to unpack and recognize here is that I had associated the debt with a noble cause. So if I don't have the debt, where does my noble cause go? And what does that mean about me? Does that mean that I'm cheating? That I'm lazy, that it's dishonorable not to have this purpose in my life. Now, the interesting thing too was immediately in my mind, I was like, oh, buy an investment property. And what would that do? Of course, put me back into debt. right? And of course, provide housing for somebody. And I'm not a person who's really interested, even though I did see that in banking. I saw people who bought lots of properties, right? And they would leverage one property against the other, and then they would have all this debt, and then they would have all these property. I'm not interested in that for myself personally. I know it's very attractive for some people, but interestingly enough, as an ex-banker, I'm not interested in doing that myself. Um, but the desire to get back into the paradigm again of being in debt, so having this noble cause to work towards. And it was really interesting experience to go, wow, look how I've placed meaning on that. And now that the debt is gone, how the meaning shifts and what does that mean about me? Because as humans, of course, we are attributing meaning all the time, especially in relationship to money. So I've just been sitting with that and kind of getting very clear that in the future, there will be no noble cause connected to struggle, connected to difficulty, connecting to debt. That the debt that if I may take on in the future will very much be connected to ease and it being a situation where it just flows, where it's easy to experience the money that I desire. And this is worth unpacking, folks, because people don't see the nuance or the meaning or the attribution of meaning because it's not necessarily coming from the conscious mind. Yeah, it's coming from the subconscious part of ourselves that's seen often how parents have done money and the meaning that they've attributed. And because we're around them, we can start imprinting that and we don't even realize that we're doing it. And kudos to my dad, who's passed, as you may know, if you listen to the podcast. I really did think of him when I paid the debt off because he was always encouraging me to pay my debt as soon as possible. And to be fair, I probably could have paid it off a lot sooner, but I have other things in my life that I really value, like travel and personal development. So I have invested a lot into those things as well. But to get to a place where recognizing the identity that we can associate with money and how I had connected it to having this debt is noble, having this debt makes me more noble because I'm like fighting the good fight, right? Like I'm in the trenches doing the work, paying off the debt. And I don't want to be that person anymore, even if I do get into debt again in the future. I want to be a person where it's like, my money works for me. This is easy. It is easier than it ever has been. I feel wealthier than I ever have before. Because checking where you are attributing meaning is so important, folks, in allowing yourself to receive more. Trusting yourself is so important. Like great questions that I often ask my clients. Do you trust yourself? And often the answer is yes, but maybe to a point. But then the next evolution of that is, do you trust God? Because it's actually the same thing. When you trust yourself, you are trusting God. When you trust God, you have no doubt that your life is going to work out the way that you want it to. But often what happens, right, we've had experiences that have created mistrust and we doubt ourselves. We doubt our ability. We doubt our ability in relationship to reality. And I've talked extensively before about becoming more powerful than reality, being the person that decides, being the person that brings the energy, the confidence, the conviction in the absence of seeing any evidence, being the person who's willing to hold the frequency. And that's why I really wanted to talk today about being wealthy beyond manifestation. I think for a lot of people, manifestation is super confusing. You're either being the person who's creating the outcome or you're not. It's actually that simple. But the orientation piece is what is important because you want to shift into a timeline where you're making money and it's easy. You want to shift into a timeline where you're enjoying making money. You want to shift into a timeline where you're experiencing all of it, the relationships that you want, the body that you want, the business that you want, the clients that you want, the money that you want. And that takes some focus. And as I've talked about before, what makes up your frequency, your thoughts, your beliefs, your conviction, your self-perception, your focus, your perspective, and how you need to get into alignment in order to bring this into reality. And to bring it into reality so you literally become it. And this is how I help entrepreneurs, because then what I'm helping them to do is if somebody comes to me and they're like, I want to make 20 grand a month, right? And it's like, okay, who do you need to be in order to do that? How do they move? How do they think? How do they feel? How are they showing up? And then, of course, what happens, and this often happens in my programs, where people have manifested their goal, and then they usually have to choose another money goal. And then the work begins again of who do I need to be to match the frequency of this? And of course, action is involved. Action is one of the steps, but action from the correct frequency is always going to win over action from the incorrect frequency. And the incorrect frequency is often who you are being now, like your default, the old version of you, as opposed to the version of you who actually has the outcome. So, as you can see from what I'm saying, your inner world and your relationship with yourself and your inner world becomes so important. In fact, the external world has got nothing to do with your manifestation process. Your external world just reflects the effect of who you're being, how you're showing up. So this is why when you think of your ideal reality, you want to be making it really fun and light and free and enjoyable and satisfying. Now, you can hear that, of course, and start leaning into what that feels like, which is the inner state that you would be experiencing in your end result. But to get to a place, folks, where this is not something that you're even endeavoring to do anymore, it's simply who you are. And this is where the work of an identity shift is so powerful. Because even for myself, and I do this work all day long with clients, helping them to see what's in the subconscious versus what is in their conscious mind and bringing them into alignment. Because the conscious mind always wants to create more. The conscious mind wants more freedom, it wants more pleasure, it wants more abundance. But if your subconscious is not on board with that, it's going to throw a spanner in the wheel. It's just not going to work. You have to bring it all into alignment and being able to see your own blind spots. And even for myself, like recognizing that I probably could have paid my home loan off sooner. But there was another aspect of myself that was like, no, it's a good thing to have this debt. It makes me more worthy because I'm working hard to repay it. And this is all subconscious, that it's better to be in debt than it is to be free. Now, one of the energies too that I have seen that is quite generational, and it's not just connected to dynamics like having grandparents who are in the Second World War, etc., right? There's a dynamic that has been in my own family, or people who served, right, in different wars, because that's epigenetics, and the epigenetics of that, of course, are fear-based, survival. There's not really thriving in that. It is gritting your teeth and hoping for the best and hoping that you come out alive. Those are not really the frequencies where we're thinking about being relaxed and feeling abundant. They're more the frequencies of being scarcity driven and learning how different generations have associated hard work with being a good person. Right? Like if I like loose lips sink ships was a thing that was said back during war days. Like be aware of who you're talking to, be aware of who you're being, be aware of how you're showing up, right? And now like work hard, like make sure that you are looking after other people, make sure that you're in the energy of never sitting still, don't be lazy, right? Like these are a lot of the subconscious energies that we can receive from our parents, from our grandparents, from our great grandparents, And even looking at your own messaging in your family is super important. And it probably plays out in who you are. Like if you're hardworking, you most probably have adopted that from your parents. If there has been any feeling of struggle, you have most probably adopted that from your immediate family. And this is super common, super, super common, because one of the biggest limiting beliefs in relationship to money is that making money is hard. But I want you to think about it. It's quite the identity shift to go from struggle, which is always connected to shame, folks. If you do some energetic poking around, struggle and shame are always kind of hanging out together, right? That somehow that it is shameful to have money be easy, right? That it's more noble to struggle. That if you are struggling, then you are making more of an effort. And that effort, and you can see how this plays out in reality. People think I have to work harder to make more. And because they believe that, that is literally how money shows up for them. Whereas there's somebody else who's working for 2 hours a day, making 5, 10 times more. You really have to understand, who am I choosing to be? What part of me is still choosing struggle? Because there's part of me that thinks it makes me worthy, because if I'm struggling for it, then I'm making more of an effort. So therefore, I'm allowed to have it. This is a very prevalent energy for a lot of people. Like I often work with entrepreneurs who are doing really well, like they're making between 10 and 40K a month, right? And then they're stepping into, sometimes higher, stepping into more for themselves and their business. Yeah. And then what's happening, right, is we're bumping up against their identity, this part of them that's like, like the conversations I'm having, like allowing it to be easier to make 100 grand a month than it is to make 10 grand a month. But who do you need to be that person? Because often, if you're a person who's making that kind of money anyway, you know the ropes. You know what it is to have a business. You know what it is to pay your bills. You know what it is to invoice clients. You know what it is to have clients step in and work with you. You know how to run a business. That's not the issue. The issue is shifting your frequency so you become a match for the money goal that you desire. And that comes back to your thoughts, your beliefs, your perspective, your self-perception, your conviction, your confidence, your ability to trust in the unseen, to trust consciousness, because that is the aspect of self that is creating your reality. So to get to a place in your reality where you are too rich to manifest anymore, you are literally being the person, and you can be guaranteed that that person believes that making money is easy. They're not efforting anymore. They're not even manifesting anymore. They are simply being that person. And I know this is, again, like the brain, when it hears this, can go, well, how? How do I do that? How do I be the person? You have to get to a place of knowing, right? Knowing that it's yours. And this is why we need to take our attention inwards. We can't focus our attention on the external world, because people do this all the time. And this is what people gets people caught up in, I need to learn more, and I need to learn more, and I need to learn more, rather than actually going, you know what? Actually, I have everything I need inside of myself to figure this out. I am powerful. I can create what it is that I desire. Where I'm focusing my attention is literally helping me to create what it is that I want. The power of your focus and your decisions is amazing. And this is what the version of you who's already made the money knows. Just like they know their own name, or they know the difference between night and day. Nobody can talk them out of it. Think about something that you know to be true, that nobody can talk you out of. Maybe it's your address or the color of your hair. Like nobody could come up to you and say that it's different, because you know it. You need to get to that place in terms of seeing yourself as wealthy and rich. And one of the most fantastic things that I've ever seen, folks, is fantastic, fascinating, curious, is people who are actually rich. Like they literally have millions in their bank account, and they still don't see themselves as rich. They're not feeling the inner state of being. And you know what happens for these people? If you continue to be that, you will start losing money. This is why often with entrepreneurs, one of the first stages that I help people to go through is to be the person who's making the level of money that they want. But the next evolution of that is to be the person who's making the level of money and holding it. Holding the wealth frequency. Because if you're still out of alignment inside of yourself, guess what? The money can come in and go right back out again. I've seen this before where business owners have created huge teams that they don't actually need because there is this subconscious energy inside of them, like, I need to get rid of the money. Right, which is wild, right? And then we're wondering why at the end of the month, you like me might be massively profitable, like in terms of revenue rather, but your profit is only $10. Because again, the subconscious is thinking that it's doing an amazing job for you. And this is where we need to get the subconscious on board so the subconscious knows that it's safe, right, and good for you to be rich. And one of the other energies that often comes up, and I should probably talk to this in another podcast, so maybe I'll do that more, but one of the other energies that often comes up for people is actually their religious programming, right? That it's not holy to be rich, because we hear things like a rich man has a better chance of walking through the eye of a needle, right, rather than entering into heaven. But a lot of times people have forgotten the rest of that, which is because he wasn't willing to give his money away, right? If we're making money a false idol and making it more important than your relationship with consciousness, and you can't give it up for the consciousness inside of yourself, then yeah, you will be served often because that's showing you that you're attached to the money more than you're trusting yourself. And if you're not trusting yourself, like I said, you're not trusting the God within. Trusting yourself means you're trusting consciousness, means you can let the money go because you trust yourself to replicate it instantaneously again. So again, this is why relationship with self is paramount. And giving yourself permission to be a person who is insanely wealthy beyond religious programming, beyond the concept of wealthy people are right or wrong, beyond your own belief systems. You have to give yourself permission for money to be shame and guilt free. Right. And I know what it's like to feel like, oh, if I make too much money, I'm going to be a bad person. The version of you who's making so much money that they don't need to manifest anymore, they've literally become it. They're not seeing themselves as a bad person. They're seeing themselves as totally aligned. And if it's easier for you to actually make your wealth devotional, meaning that you are constantly giving gratitude to the universe for what you have, which of course is the correct perspective. Because the people, like I spoke to before, who have a lot of money, but they're not in appreciation, they're missing the inner state of being, which is gratitude, which is, thank you, universe. I'm so grateful for being in this experience of having all this freedom. But again, this comes back to our attribution of meaning, because some people can have millions and it still doesn't feel like enough because they haven't activated the inner state of being, of gratitude, of peace, relaxation, of choice, freedom, because their focus is in the wrong place. So really, to become this person who is too rich to manifest anymore, it's like a stage of emotional and creative maturity, which is where you just simply become it. You become the I am. You become, I am wealthy. I am rich. I am guilt-free. I am shameless. The reason I say that too, folks, is because so many times when I work with people, those are the two things that hold people back from really experiencing extraordinary wealth. On some level, they feel ashamed. They feel like they're doing something wrong. They feel like it would make them a bad person. They feel like it would isolate themselves. Right. And again, being in places where, sometimes I've seen that before, where people have made a lot of money and then they feel lonely because they don't feel like they can relate to other people. That is also a belief system. There are other people out there just like you who are incredibly wealthy who would love to connect with you. And again, sometimes too, we have fear that if we have a lot of money, right, like that people will be jealous of us and then we won't be able to connect. Again, this all comes back to your own internal belief systems and making it super safe inside of yourself to be a person who can connect with everyone because you're fearless and open-hearted while simultaneously being incredibly wealthy. This is also, too, why the journey of wealth fascinates me because it's all about the relationship that you're having with yourself. I've said this before on the podcast. I actually see money as a spiritual guide. Like it is literally showing you who you're being in relationship to your infinite self, into your, relationship with consciousness, with God, with the universe. It shows you moment to moment to moment. Do you trust that the universe has got you? Do you trust God more than you trust your own ability to make money? Are you allowing it to be easier than you ever thought possible? Are you shame and guilt free in relationship to your next evolution? Are you allowing yourself to give yourself permission to have the lifestyle that you want? Are you allowing yourself to be a person who can double their money in the next 30 days? If you want help with that, please send me a message because that's literally what I help people to do. When you understand the principles of creation, you can make all the money that you want. You just simply have to match the vibration of that and to know how to navigate it. And this is available for everybody. There is no limitation on it, but only certain people will probably give themselves permission to live to their full potential and to activate it from within and to go for it. Because the sky's the limit, right? Like in my mastermind, which is called the FUCK Yes Money Mastermind, everybody in the mastermind, right? Making more money, stepping into the version of themselves as the business owner who's pouring money into their business as a portal and being that business owner, right? You are choosing moment to moment who you're being. And how do you know? Like, look at the last week. Did you have certainty and conviction in your outcome? Were you being the person? Were you locked into it like it was inevitable, like it was certain? That's exactly what I help people to do, to lock in so there are no other options. Because you can't change reality by trying to change reality. You can only change reality, folks, by changing yourself. And that is why in my work all the time, right, it all comes back to who you're being. What's your reaction to that? What are you making that mean? How have you attributed meaning there? Is that in the frequency that's going to match what it is that you wish to create? And this is why the journey is often shifting out of needing to control everything and into huge levels of self-trust. Because when you're trusting yourself, you're trusting the universe. And when you are at that stage, you will no longer need to try and apply manifestation techniques. You will simply become it. But if you're a person right now who has a lot of wealth and you're still not feeling the satisfaction, that is an invitation into the next level for you. Because there is a version of you who's making huge money, working less, and enjoying their life more. There's always an upgrade available, folks. So remembering that, what does the next evolution of your life look like? What does the next upgraded lifestyle look like? What does it look like for you to experience even more freedom? What does it look like for you to be a money magnet? Like if your money has only ever come from your business because you've created that belief system, what does it look like for money to come through lots of different portals? What does it look like for the opportunities to show up, to be in the frequencies where you're matching it and it is bringing you so much pleasure? One of the things I see for business owners, again, this belief that struggle, I have to make money from struggle. And the revelation it is when they bring the energy of pleasure into their business, that's when you're going to feel like you are beyond manifestation. You're just too rich to manifest anymore because you're simply experiencing so much pleasure through who you're being and what you're offering and allowing money, energy in the form of money to flow back into your world. So exciting updates, folks, in regards to my own shifts and my own revelations in relationship to paying off my loan and how I felt about the debt, and also stepping into the version of you. I want you to remember this too. The version of you who has everything that they desire, nothing is wrong in their reality. Nothing. Because they've mastered their ability to know that they are at choice in responding to what is happening. How you choose to see something either makes you stronger or weaker. When it makes you stronger and brings you more confidence and certainty, you are well on your way to mastering reality and therefore mastering money. As always, folks, it's always a pleasure. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me at my website, www.rebeccadavison.life. Do feel free to reach out to me if you're interested in doubling your money in the next 30 days or less. What I do is I take people through the principles of creation. I help you to understand what it is that you need to know in terms of getting into alignment, and then I literally help you to implement it. I help you to shift subconscious blocks so you can come into alignment with what your conscious mind desires. When you're in alignment, that's when it comes into your reality. I'm sending you so much love, and I'll look forward to connecting with you again soon. Lots of love, everybody. Bye for now.